Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Final Tackle podcast. And we've actually got a guest that I've had a goal to have on since I started it because I'm a devout Collingwood Magpies nut. He played 220 games for Collingwood and 22 for the Swans. He is Anthony Rocca. Honestly, thank you for joining us here today. And, mate, I don't even know where to start because you're just such an idol of mine when I was a kid. So thank you for joining us today, first of all.
Pleasure. I'm excited that I'm, someone who's given you so much joy over the time that I was playing footy.
Let's get stuck into it. First of all, it's your grassroots. What was your grassroots club, and how did you get from there to the draft, and what was it like getting there?
Okay, it takes me a long way back. I started playing footy at a club in Reservoir in the northern suburbs of Melbourne. It's where I grew up. And the team was called North Reservoir.
Okay.
And typically, I followed my brother because the under-17 side needed some extra players to play, and Seventh was never really into footy. And one of his friends was playing there, and he started playing. And then a couple of weeks later, I joined the under-13s and started from there. And from there, played a couple of years there. We didn't win many games, I can tell you that. And the grounds back then were full of mud.
Oh, okay, yep.
Particularly, the drainage system wasn't great, but it was just, enjoyment footy where we just went along with our friends, played. We back in those days, we'd ride our bikes from 3 or 4 k's from home.
Yep.
Ride to training. And then, pack up, ride back home in the dark, and we were 13 years of age back then. Right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't think of it these days.
No, you wouldn't. Nah.
Nah. But what happened from there? I played a few years, and then got into a development squad, which was called the Phillips Development Squad. That was a northern suburb area, the catchment area of talent back then. Ended up going there, and then from there it became I played at the Northern Knights, whereas that's the under 18 competition that was back then.
Yep.
And was coached by Keith Burns, who coached the under 19s at Collingwood before that, and he was a development coach then. And I really loved my time, even though Burns he was pretty hard, and you didn't need him. You didn't need him right next to you to be heard, so you could hear him from the ground. So, and then from there, I played a couple of years. I played under my age development, so I think I was probably about 16 when I first played my games there. And at that time I had a few injuries. Like I had knee problems, so I had a few clean outs of my knees back then.
Yep.
And I only played a couple of games while I was about 16 playing for the under-18s. And then a year after that, played consistently at that level.
Yep.
And then got drafted by Sydney in the draft.
Now, was it a big shock, first of all, to you on the draft day, being selected in the draft, first of all, because it's anyone who doesn't necessarily follow AFL who's listening to this, when they do listen, the AFL has a draft system compared to the NRL that has a salary cap. Were you hoping and expecting to be picked in the draft, or was it oh shit, I've been picked?
No. Well, what happens is you have meetings with recruiters, and we were in talks with Sydney a fair bit because they had draft pick 1 and 2. Sorry, they had pick 3. 2 and 3 they had.
Yep.
So they knew straight away Fremantle was going to pick Jeff White. And Jeff White was a gun player.
Oh, he was.
A gun player AFL as well. So they knew that he was going to get picked there, and from there, Sydney were in talks with me a fair bit. And I pretty much knew before the draft that they were going to pick me, even though I said I didn't really want to go, because I had strong family ties in Melbourne, and and I wanted to stay in Melbourne at the time. So, but they picked myself at number 2 and Shannon Grant at number 3.
Okay. And obviously, as you just mentioned, you didn't really want to go because you had ties to Melbourne. Was that kind of the driving factor for you? And I don't mean this in any ill will, lasting only a season at Sydney because you wanted to come back to Melbourne?
Well, I was there for 2 years.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. The first year I held firm and I said, look, guys, I'm not coming up. Look, I wouldn't be giving you a lot of great service because my heart's not in.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the Sydney football.
No. It was
just a driving force. I have strong family ties here back in Melbourne, but I actually kept training with the Northern Knights at the time.
Okay.
Played a practice match as well, and the story supposedly goes that there's Tony Lockett and Paul Roos came to my house one day, and we had a pretty good chat. They talked about the Sydney lifestyle, the Sydney environment, but it was really nice of them to come across and have that chat. But it wasn't that chat that changed my mind to go up there. It was the fact that I was still doing my Year 12 schooling.
Yep.
And I could go up and down. So I trained there. I'd go up to train once a week, come back home, and then go back and play on the weekend.
Okay, so it didn't brutally impact your Year 12 schooling.
No, not at all. I wasn't that great at school anyway, so I didn't have much of an impact there.
Fair enough.
But it did have a good impact on my frequent flyers, which was good at the time. But I did that. I did that for that year, and on the school holidays, I was up there for the couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Stayed at Peter Philandia's place, who took me in for a couple of weeks, a couple of times. And then at the end of the year, I had no more schooling, so I thought, let's give it a crack.
Yeah, like you may, no offense, at that point have never gotten another crack at it, sort of thing.
Yeah. So I had, I did the preseason there. Lived up there. I lived with Paula Courier and Clinton King.
Oh, and liquor! Wow.
Yeah, my mum come up for it was about 4 months just to look after us boys as well, which I was really fortunate for. So, and then after 4 months, told her to go back home and stayed there for a bit longer. Played some okay games and things like that. And then at the end of the year, I basically told us, with my management, told the Swans that guys, I want to go back home. Let's see if we can make it happen.
Yep. And were they reluctant or at the start, or were they like, nah, 100% go home sort of thing?
No, they were absolutely. They weren't reluctant, but they just wanted to get the best outcome for their club with draft picks and players that they possibly could. And then, the trade period, ironically, the deal was done after the deadline of the trade.
Oh, wow.
Deadline. So I thought, I've got to go into the draft again. So it actually got done and ended up going to Collingwood.
Yeah, and you linked up with your brother Saverio at Collingwood. What was it like? Obviously, because that would have helped even more so, having some family at the club as well. And what was it like playing alongside Saverio at the top level or the top echelon of the AFL, and then also playing against him in his final game in the AFL?
Yeah, look, it wasn't the lure of at that stage. Wasn't the lure of going to Collingwood. It was the lure of playing with my brother.
Yeah. Okay.
Which basically I'd never played in an official game with him at that stage.
Yeah, well, because you're a few years younger than him, so you weren't even in his grades, sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah,
I almost played a school footy game.
Okay.
With him when he was in Year 12 and I was in Year 8, I think I was, and they needed an extra number, and I sat on the bench the whole game. Didn't actually get on the ground. Yeah, so that was great. Like I had I think it was about 3 or 4 years with Sav, and it was a good time. But sometimes that if me and Sav didn't have a good game, the media got down on us pretty.
They would have. Same with the Cloak Boys and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
No, that's fair. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, that was a good time. We played some good games together, and we shared in moments that were pretty good.
No, that's fair. And what about, as I mentioned, his last game, which was for North Melbourne before he jetted off to America? You played against each other in his last game, which, if anything, it's fitting that you were part of his last game. What was that like?
Yeah, it was good. It was a really memorable time. He had some great times at Collingwood and had really good times at North Melbourne as well. So to finish in a game that we played together was a good opportunity.
No, that's fair. It'd be very special, yeah. Now, you honestly had a massive boot on you when you were playing. A 70-metre goal sort of thing, 60-metre goals, 50-metre goals. You name it, you could really kick it from anywhere on the field, you could say. Which notably got you the Gordon Coventry medal in 2000, 2002, 2006 and 2007. And scoring a whopping 55 goals in the 2006 season. What was it like to have such an accolade, which is the Gordon Coventry medal, awarded to yourself?
Yeah, it's really special to get, and you reflect when you retire with those accolades. And at the time, you just accept that and you thank for receiving those accolades. Now to get that accolade, Gordon Coventry was a legend of our football club, which is really special to get them. I never ever played for accolades. You know, I played to try and get the biggest accolade, and that was a grand final medal. But we never really achieved that. But we tried our darn best to try and get that, which was unfortunate. But we just got beaten by better sides.
I was going to say, speaking of grand finals, I was actually going to mention that, so that helps me segue. 2002, a very, very controversial for any Collingwood fan, or even Brisbane Lions fans I've heard as well. Your, in my opinion, goal that was called a behind. Do you personally believe that it was a goal, or sort of thing?
To this day, I still believe it's. I don't believe. I know it was a goal from where I was.
So do I. Like, if they had that video replay that they do these days, it would have been a goal.
It's ironic that we never ever really see a replay of that.
Well, what I'm going to do is unfortunately, but just to prove all the haters wrong, in this episode, I'm going to put a footage of that video. I'll find it on YouTube somewhere, and I'll play it during that question that I just did. Because honestly, not just me as a devout Collingwood fan, but I'm a devout AFL fan in general. Even if I wasn't a Collingwood fan, I would 100% say that was a goal. You know, it was.
Yeah, I still believe it was a goal, but whether that was a goal or not, the outcome we still don't know what the outcome would have been.
Exactly, it could have been a momentum shift. It could have, it's good to think and sometimes fun to think on what could have been. But yeah, so let's not dwell on that too much. You then became.
I reckon what could have been was that we probably would have won by 5 goals. So let's just make that up.
Yeah, let's go with that. I reckon. And then you also were put in as a life member of Collingwood in 2006. That same year, you got a Gordon Coventry medal. What was it like getting that? You know, as I said, I know it's an accolade, but it's one of the highest honours that you could get from a club.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that. Again, at the end of the career, you look back and you go, "Well, I'm a life member of this football club, which is fantastic, and I'm forever associated and been involved with this football club, which has been a long part of my life. So I'm forever grateful for that."
No, that's awesome. And speaking of obviously retirement and whatnot, what are you doing with yourself these days? And also, how are you still involved with Collingwood?
So with Collingwood at the moment, when COVID happened, I got stood down. So there's a whole bunch of staff that got stood down. It's on skeleton staff at the moment up in Queensland.
Yep.
And I was looking at the time when we were there. I was looking after the aerial, so all the marking, spoiling, contested marking, all that sort of stuff with the aerial component of the game, and also looking after our ruckman.
Okay.
Well.
Yep.
Brady Grundy. Darcy Cameron, Mason Cox, Max Lynch, so having a strong affiliation with them, which I'm still talking to a couple of guys at the moment via FaceTime or via Zoom, and just reviewing their games and previewing the next upcoming opponents coming up. Just we've been up against some really good ruckmen over the past few years. If we can just tap into some of those reviews, if we can get something out of that to help us in the next game, so be it.
Yeah.
What else am I doing? I am, I'm part owner in the gym in Bulleen at the Veneto Club, which is an Italian club there, and we run the gym there, and we do anything from PTs to group training to boxing, or if anyone just wants to roam around the gym and do their own stuff, they can do that. So I'm a part owner in that. And at the moment, all we can do is Zoom classes because of COVID restrictions. So what that's called, that's called Vida Fitness. So if anyone's on
I'll
your
Yep. Well, I'll drop the links in the episode and all that.
yep,
And any social medias that it has, I'll drop the links in that as well.
perfect.
Yeah, for sure. For anyone who's wanting to get fit in what area of Victoria is it?
We're in Bulleen.
Okay. Yep. Well, if anyone in the Bulleen area or the surrounds area of
Yep,
that, yeah, and you guys want to get fit, go through Bulleen. Sorry, go through Bulleen. Sorry, go through Vito or Vida.
Vida,
Vida.
VIDA, Vida Fitness.
Go through Vida Fitness. Yeah, for sure. When
We
you were
also
going,
do,
sorry, go
we
ahead.
also do we also do some footy stuff as well. So
Okay.
one-on-one footy and footy camps for young kids as well. So on the school holiday.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow, that's actually really awesome. And speaking of kids and whatnot, who was your hero growing up as a kid watching the VFL?
Oh, hero. Well, when I was young, my dad followed Richmond, and
Okay.
I just followed my old man. We followed Richmond, but we weren't really into footy.
Okay.
We did athletics a fair bit, and we did a lot of athletics and things like that. But as we started to get older and into footy, I think the one I really enjoyed watching was Gavin Brown from Collingwood.
Yep.
And got to play with him as well, which was quite special. And he was just, he was a bull terrier. He'd go in for contests that no one really else would go in for. So, when I played at Sydney, I had some really good footballers up there. Tony Lockett, Paul Kelly was an inspirational leader. He'd lead by example, quite similar to Gavin Brown.
Yep.
But those guys were guys who I looked up to absolutely.
No, that's fair enough. And obviously, speaking of your time with Collingwood and the Swans and all that, during your time in the AFL, which teams were the toughest for you personally to go up against mentally and physically?
Ooh,
I'd probably say Brisbane. That'd be a no-brainer.
well, we had some really good games against Brisbane. I played against some really good opponents, Mel Michael, Lepich. But those guys, as good as defenders they were, you always got opportunities against them because they were attacking style backmen as well.
Okay, yep.
So I normally kicked 2 or 3 and sometimes 4 goals against these guys.
Okay.
The big games we play, they're all special. The Anzac Day games, the big Carlton games. That's the one thing that
They're the ones you get up for, sort of thing.
Yeah, they're the one thing that I miss about footy now. So I couldn't play the game now. I'm just way too old. But they're the games that I wish. If I could still play, they're the games that I wish I'd play. The Essendon games, the Anzac Day games.
I love the Anzac Day game. Like, if I don't ever get a chance to watch AFL ever again, I will at least have the memories of the Anzac Day games.
Absolutely. The Carlton games were big, and the Richmond games. Some years we played Richmond in the first or second round, and they were huge games. Absolutely.
Nah, that's fair. Switching to a bit of fun topics. What series are you currently binging on Netflix?
Oh, what series? Well, we just finished Cobra Kai.
Okay, is that any good? Because I was put off by it when it was on YouTube, and now Netflix have bought it.
Yeah, it was the first series was okay. It's probably one of those shows that it's pretty average, but you've just got to keep watching.
Okay.
And it actually brings you back to your childhood a little bit because I love Karate Kid when I was young.
Who didn't? Yeah.
Yeah, and it actually brought. We watch a fair bit with my wife, and it actually. You could actually pick when something was going to happen.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So the only thing we didn't see is that he's trying to get someone to catch the fly with the chopsticks. That would have been all.
That would have been cool. Well, I'll definitely go off that recommendation. If you could have a superpower, what would it be and why? I mean, you already had the superpower of a massive kick.
A superpower. I wish I could fly.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Fly. Yep.
What's your current beer of choice?
One I've had lately is Stone and Wood.
Okay.
I think it is.
Yeah.
But some of the pale ales now are really nice.
Mm.
I'm actually, yeah, they're good, but the one I keep coming back to is a Budweiser.
Okay, I've not had Budweiser before, but that's just
Yeah.
not having tried it before. A pale ale that I've got into at the moment is called Bolter, or Bolters, I think
Okay.
it's called. It's quite good, quite good. And how do you like your steak cooked at the moment?
Medium rare.
Yeah, nah, that's fair. What are your thoughts on the Gabba hosting the grand final this year?
I love it.
Yeah.
Like, look, I think the if the capacity for the Optus Stadium in WA would have been available at capacity, the 60,000 they can get. It's a great stadium. It's a beautiful stadium. I think that probably would have been the better option, but the Gabba's. I just think morally the Gabba's the right choice. Queensland and the Gold Coast have been outstanding in what they've done to get this game up and going. So I think they deserve it
Especially with
morally.
the hubs and all that, yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, that's fair. And what are your thoughts on the AFL and the restructure with the shortened quarters and the COVID restart sort of thing?
I don't mind the shortened quarters. I think I think it makes the game a bit more ballistic.
Mm-hmm.
But in saying that, the fatigue factor with it being a bit more ballistic has it really shows up the lack of skill level on some teams and some players.
Mm-hmm.
And the teams that have got the best skills pretty much dominate games.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Port Adelaide are an example of that at the moment. And what are your thoughts on how Collingwood, is sort of going to go to these last two rounds before the finals?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because it's pretty tight down there in the bottom part of the eight. The fact that we get Jordan DeGoey and Treloar back, I think, which has been reported. I actually hear nothing at the moment. All I hear is what's on the news and what's in the papers. So the fact that we get them back is going to be an added bonus. And I wouldn't be surprised if we give... we've got to get past this week against Gold Coast.
I think Collingwood will comfortably win, and that's to no offence or no ill will against the Gold Coast. But I personally think Collingwood will get the win. But yeah, it's the last game. I think it's against Port, actually. I may be wrong. That's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I think with these two boys back, and I think we've got a better game style than what Gold Coast has.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then I think if we win that, I think we're pretty much guaranteed to play final.
Yeah,
I think
at least, in my opinion, we're at least a shoe in for the qualifying finals.
And then we play Port Adelaide, which would be a great test to see exactly where we're at.
Well, because they're the pinnacle of the season so far. So.
Yep. And I think we're in the X Factor if we get in there.
Yeah, honestly, you're not wrong. You're probably not wrong. Yeah. Looking back on your career, what would be your personal achievement highlight sort of thing?
With football,
yeah.
I would, even though we lost playing in the grand final, the highlights are playing in those games, and having the ability to, having a shot at winning those opportunities, which we didn't take, but they're a highlight. We played against one of the best sides to ever play the game, and we fell, I think it was 8 points short.
Yeah.
And then, the highlights, as I said before, playing the Anzac Day games, playing against Carltons and the Richmonds and all those, high-profile teams that we had rivalries with, and just, the fact that, this game took me to places that I probably wouldn't even thought I'd go. We ended up going to South Africa for a training camp, and then played games of footy. We played a game of footy over in Dubai.
Oh, wow.
We played exhibition games in London.
Were you part of the team that when they implemented the Arizona training camp, or was that after? Yeah. So what was like going to Arizona as well?
I actually, even though we were only gone for about 3 weeks. But the fact of getting out of Melbourne, getting out of the bubble that we live in here, which can be quite frustrating at times, and to go there without any media, without any fanfare, just go over there, train at at high altitude,
Yep.
get fit quicker, lose a couple of kilos, and just be in the surround of all the players every day, every morning, every afternoon, every night was good. I highly recommend it to keep doing it, but we just can't keep doing it because it's too expensive with the salary cap that we have.
Yeah, and obviously, unfortunately, with COVID this year, regardless, it wouldn't have been able to happen.
No, not at all.
Your first game against Sydney, like after leaving Sydney, what was that like? I mean, you probably don't remember the game in particular, but what was maybe your feelings going into that week?
I vaguely remember it. I think I remember. I built some relationships with some players there as well, and I just didn't know how they felt when I played against them. And there was no real ill will towards me when I was playing against them. Some cheeky little comments from Darren Creswell and a couple of little players from here and there, but no, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad at all.
No, that's good. During your time, obviously in the AFL, which if was there any players that had like a really like superstitious ritual or routine that they had to do before a game?
The one I can only remember is Shane Woden when he tied up his bootlaces. All his laces were flat.
Oh,
like when you laces, sometimes they crinkle over, and
yep.
His were always flat, and he he'd spend a little bit of time and
making sure that they were like all of them were flat.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
Some players have got they have to put their left sock on before their right and things like that, or wear the same Speedos underneath their shorts or whatever, but or run out in the ground first or second or last.
Yep. Did you have any of those superstitions or nah?
Nah, not really. Nah, not really at all.
Oh, that's fair. And last question I've got and topic that I can think of is, do you have any advice for any kids that, whether it's in the odds kick or in general, that would love to, make it in the big league one day?
Yep. Enjoy your footy. Really enjoy it from your young tacker to, middle teens or even older. But the one thing I keep coming back to and keep telling people is you want to train as you want to play. If you want to train fast, if you want to play fast, play with high skills, practice that all the time. Practice that in training. If you want to play slow, train slow. Okay, it's pretty simple. If you want to work hard during games, work hard during training.